I'm Linda Elsegood, founder of the LDN Research Trust. It has been my honour to interview LDN researchers, prescribers, pharmacists and patients from around the world for many conditions. Thank you for joining us.
This evening I'm joined by Paul from England, and Paul uses LDN for ME. Thank you for joining me, Paul.
It's a pleasure.
Could you tell us when you first noticed the symptoms of ME?
For me, it started, I would say, in my early teens. I was involved in a hit-and-run car accident when I was 4, and it left me with quite a serious head injury. And as I got older, I certainly started to struggle with flu symptoms, but specifically a lack of stamina and energy.
Goodness. And how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 57.
Oh, goodness. So you've had it a long time. So
yeah, a long time.
So how did your life between your early teens to now, well, before you started LDN, let's go up to from that point to your pre-LDN days?
Yeah. I think perhaps by the time I was 30, I was really starting to suffer to the point where I was desperately searching for some help, and I was living on painkillers to combat the flu symptoms. Of course, doctors really thought there was nothing to. Well, they couldn't understand what was wrong with it, but they would say that painkillers won't be doing any good. And of course, the traditional depression was mentioned. So I was put on antidepressants at 30, and that's not to say there wasn't some psychological issues in my life, because, like sadly everybody, we lose loved ones, and being an only child, I had to deal with quite a lot of responsibility, and just the frustration of not understanding what was wrong with me. And sadly, holding a job down for a while became very difficult. So I'm sure I did start to become depressed, but it wasn't depression first. It was definitely some damage done to my central nervous system. I thought so anyway.
Mm-hmm. So could you describe, before you started LDN, what a typical day for you was like?
Right. Waking at any time of the day. I mean, sometimes I'd be waking up very early, and sometimes I would sleep through till the late afternoon. These cycles weren't they weren't regular or regulated. So I would wake up quite exhausted, and sleep was definitely not refreshing sleep. And if I did any sort of exertion during the day, it wasn't, I could pay for several days, if not a couple of weeks, depending on what I did. So I was living in constant exhaustion, and this isn't tiredness. It's a deep exhaustion which takes your mental capacity, physical. So it is a bit consuming, because you don't really have an answer for this. And until I got a diagnosis, which took ever so long, because obviously we know, like many other ailments, ME was not recognised, certainly not in this country so well. But once I did get some recognition, and I also then started to take my health more seriously, because I knew it was an actual problem and what it was, so I could focus. But yeah, the mental fog was terrible, because you didn't have the capacity to read or to watch telly, or attention span was ever so short, just through sheer exhaustion rather than lack of interest.
Mm-hmm. And how did you hear about LDN?
Yes, it was about 10 years ago. I did some research, or had been doing research about my condition anyway, but certainly my immune system was bad. I'd struggled from a very early age with a bad immune system, so I was looking for things that might help, and LDN certainly came up on the internet, and I watched, several homegrown videos, if you like, but lots of people were saying then that it was certainly helping them. for various things, as we know. But I never actually had the confidence to go and ask my doctor. So this was 10 years ago, and actually forgot all about it until about 6 or 7 months ago, and it came back to me because of becoming more aware of my own body, and certainly becoming a bit more desperate because I was picking colds up one after the other, having antibiotics one course after the rest, and I thought, this can't carry on because the ME won't tolerate that. So I found a reference to a certain chemist in Scotland, and I gave them a ring, and they're a compounding chemist. And from there we went through a private doctor who sort of spoke to me in detail and eventually was happy to prescribe. And it's been 4 months now that I've been on LDN.
And what's your experience been so far?
Right. I think the first night that I took, because for ME patients and people with the damaged autoimmune system, which is obviously covering lots of things, but they say to start on perhaps half a milligram. So I did, but when I woke up the next day, I actually felt quite elevated. I was very calm. I'd had a cold sore for, it's just gone on for weeks, and the doctor was going to prescribe a tablet that you can take, as you perhaps know, to dry this up to stop the virus. But this had dried up overnight. So that was my first understanding that this has actually got something about it. Over the next few months, I started, initially weeks, I started to increase the dose. And I got to about 2.5, 3 milligrams, but then it was also causing some side effects, which was the increased flu symptoms. So I took it back again to perhaps 1 milligram. And now, 4 months later, I've slowly brought it up to the point where my tolerance is very good at about 3 milligrams. And I've never had a cold in all that time. I haven't had a cold sore, little cuts and scratches that would take possibly weeks to heal. Virtually the next day, I can guarantee a little cut will be not healed, but on its way to healing. You know, this evidence, this is amazing. That in itself is, for me, was enough evidence to continue taking it. And it's very affordable. So, you know, it's something that I'm going to continue taking for the rest of my life. I'm guaranteed this sort of response, which is helping my health. You know, it's no miracle, but it's definitely offering me something, and it's helping my immune system. I can feel it.
And what about your sleep? Are you sleeping better? Are you feeling refreshed?
I wouldn't say things have gone quite that far, because my ME's gone unchecked for decades, so I've gone a little bit too far for some things to help that quick, but I am feeling a difference. I am. I mean, I can think better, and that can vary, of course, but there is a definite increase or improvement in my cognitive ability, and I feel confident maybe 6 months, maybe even towards a year of taking this, that I feel that will improve, certainly to some level, because I already feel it has. Sleep is generally better, and my cognitive ability, I certainly have a broader span of it, you know, instead of it being like 10 minutes or half an hour or an hour a day, which sounds ridiculous to anybody who's healthy. Now I do feel that I can take on so much more. I'm still tired, but I am actually doing something. Yes, the LDN's definitely helped with my sleep pattern initially. I started to sleep a little bit better. It's always been erratic for me, you know, it would go in small bursts of oversleeping and getting no sleep at all. So it does seem to have balanced out. The fatigue, I can't say that it's made a massive difference, but I have taken a lot more on recently. and I've actually sustained that, as in, yes, I've been exhausted. It might have knocked me back a few days, but I've actually been able to stick with whatever I was doing. Instead of previous times, it would be so overwhelming that I would have had to sort of declined an offer of whatever. Now I'm actually being able to face those things, knowing that I will have a little bit more stamina. And I've got the benefit of achieving something as well. So I do feel there's been an improvement. And I think by the time maybe 6 months to maybe even towards a year of taking LDN, I think I will see a steady improvement in that area.
Well, I personally improved for 18 months. I carried on improving. But as you were saying, to actually be able to do something, achieve targets and goals and aims that you set yourself, not only does it make you feel good, it, you know, your self-esteem goes up, your quality of life goes up, and you generally feel so much happier that you've achieved something, even though it makes you tired. You know, going to bed feeling tired is better than going to bed feeling totally exhausted, isn't it? It's a different thing. Yeah. So
it's quite different.
It is, and it's very reassuring to hear you talking like that. You know, yes, if you overdo it, you have to pay the penalty. It's a balancing act, isn't it, of listening to your body and knowing when you've had enough. But I'm sure you're on the right road, and it's very early days for you. So it'd be interesting to speak to you maybe next year this time and see how you've continued getting on.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, because there's not many things that I've had faith in, you know, regarding treatment, because there hasn't been virtually anything for people that have suffered with chronic fatigue syndrome, ME. But we know fibromyalgia now, LDN is certainly mentioned as a treatment. So hopefully, you know, this is going to increase to the point where it should be a standard. It should be standard treatment, even if it just brings a normalization to your immune system, you know. But I also have a friend, a very close friend, and she's actually started on it, and she's had to have her thyroid removed, and it's made a difference very quickly for her. You know, her skin's improved. She even feels like her eyesight's improved, because the Graves' disease that certainly came after the thyroid toxicity caused terrible things to her eyes, but there's been a massive change for her. So there's two of us, you know, genuinely see a difference. And this non-toxic drug, at the level we take it, you feel safe.
Yes. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us, Paul.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Linda. Look forward to talking to you next year.
Good.
Do you have LDN experience to share? If so, please email me, linda@ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you.